For those who have only seen the Nausicaä film, we have a shocking truth to share. The original manga version of Nausicaä reaches a completely different ending from the movie. After the toxic jungle finishes purifying the earth, what truth awaits? Humanity, the cruel reality that Nausicaä and the others cannot survive in the clean world, and the true weight of the words, "We must live," as drawn by Miyazaki Hayao. Okada Toshio delivers a thorough breakdown of the manga Nausicaä, all seven, Miyazaki's truth, and the shocking ending, things you can never know from the movie alone. Watch this video to the end, and the way you see the Nausicaä film will change from the ground up.
So, let's get to the main topic about Nausicaä today. This is the fourth complete breakdown of Nausicaä. So let's start by thinking about what the final scene means. In the final scene, starting from the top where Nausicaä is repairing the windmill, there's old Mito, and as we look down the screen, we see people from Pajite scattered around. The people from Pajite are wearing head wraps and headbands, so their clothing has distinct. There are people from Pajite. In other words, people from Pajite have come to the Valley of the Wind and are learning how to build windmills. The city of Pajite is already destroyed, with dead god warriors everywhere, which means that area beyond will be swallowed by the sea of corruption. So what do? Basically, they've immigrated to the Valley of the Wind. The scene showing this is the new windmill design. The reason it has to be a new windmill is because of what they learned at the bottom of the sea of corruption. If you pump water from a depth of 500 meters or more, clean water comes out that's now crystal clear. So Nausicaä teaches them this. From now on, they don't need to build water reservoirs by force. They can just pump water from deep underground. In response to that, the people of Pajite said, "If it's something engineering related, we can help you out." They helped create an efficient windmill, and both peoples worked together. And they pumped up clean water, and the valley was going to develop from here on. It's quite a good ending, isn't it? And then there are children planting trees to eat. This too. Pajite children are mixed in among the children wearing headbands. So there's the Pajite headband and the Valley of the Wind headband, and there's also the Hachimaki headband. Well, it's the next generation. The Pajite people who survived centered around the children became residents of the Valley of the Wind. That's how it's set up. There was an opinion that it would be difficult to pump water up from 500, but the Pajite people dug out the god warrior from even deeper than that. So I think if they have Pajite technology, that should be fine. So, these Pajite people became residents of the Valley of the Wind, but interestingly, Aspel doesn't move to that Valley of the Wind. So Aspel's final scene is like this. This is the parting between Aspel and Nausicaä. Going from top to bottom, at first Nausicaä is flying ahead. Then Aspel and Yupa overtake her. They pass her and say goodbye. Then we get a close-up of Nausicaä's face, and this is actually Nausicaä's last appearance. From here on, we see Aspel and Yupa, but the supposed main character Nausicaä. This becomes her final scene. Now, for those who've been following my lectures, you'll understand this. The key point is that she's moving to the left. In other words, up until now, Nausicaä has been. The movement from screen right to left represents progress in the story. And Nausicaä has been driving the story forward until now. But from here on, Aspel takes over creating what happens next. That's why Aspel overtakes Nausicaä. And then, in her final appearance, she waves her hand. This is what we call a lead role handoff, the heroine's farewell bow. Not exactly breaking the fourth wall, but she clearly shows her face to the audience and waves, so the heroine is saying goodbye to the viewers. So from here on, who is the narrator? From here, we see Aspel and the others entering the sea of corruption. So why didn't Nausicaä go? Why is Aspel It's about why Aspel emigrated and settled here in the first place. And here's the next scene. Yupa and Aspel entering the sea of corruption. Notice how they're moving from right to left on screen, from upstage to downstage. And Aspel and Yupa are gazing at the god warrior. They're looking to the left side of the screen here too. Looking toward the downstage side creates a sense of, it's really textbook stuff. The direction follows all the basic principles of cinematography. So they have a purpose for going to the bottom of the sea of corruption. They're searching for something. What are they searching for? It's the world at the bottom of the sea of corruption. What Nausicaä found, what Nausicaä and Aspel discovered. But here's the thing about that world at the bottom of the sea. This is from when Nausicaä fell down there. It has a flaw, and that flaw is that at the bottom of the sea of corruption, the air and water are both clean. You don't need a mask. But the problem is, there's no life at all down there. There's beautiful sand, and there's beautiful, but all the trees are dead. Within those dead, Nausicaä says that only the water flows through. It's a world of death. There's absolutely no life there. And because it's a world of death, it's wrapped in absolute silence. So the sea of corruption creates completely pure nature, so to speak. Pure water and air, but it doesn't harbor any life. But then, at the end, life is actually being born in the sea of corruption. And that's because Aspel and Nausicaä fell into it. The Chico fruit that Nausicaä brought is sprouting. If you look at the storyboards, it clearly says the storyboard specifically noted as a sprout from the Chico fruit. When Nausicaä falls, she's attacked by the giant wasp. And when its tail flicks the mev away, there's a scene where Nausicaä's hat goes flying. It's that hat. If you look closely at the hat, the ear flaps on both sides are open. It has wings on it. This is the key point here. It opens on both sides, looks like wings, and in the middle there's a sprout growing from the Chico fruit. In other words, if Nausicaä hadn't gone, there would only be a normal world. Nature wouldn't have regenerated, and Yupa and Aspel will eventually find that place. And Talmikia, Pijite, and the Valley of the Wind, the three nations will one day join hands and migrate there. So it's an ending filled with that kind of hope. That's the reason why it has a feather-like shape. The opening's mere legend has finally become reality in this moment. One who wears the blue mantle shall descend upon the golden field. In this case, shall doesn't mean should do something. It's not about will. What was it again? Future perfect intention. Was it future? It's about destiny. Shall refers to destiny, you see. It means will descend upon the golden field. And so the prophecy goes, by restoring the bond with the lost earth, humanity will finally be guided to a pure blue land. That's what the prophecy says. But if Nausicaä hadn't carried the toxic jungle seeds, the world would have just had clean air and nothing more. It would have remained a world of death forever. So it was actually Nausicaä and Aspel. They were the ones who revived the bottom of the toxic jungle as a pure blue land. They were the cause. So the people's despair transforms into hope, and their wishes become reality. A tree grows there, and a girl with wings appears. That's what this is. A hat with wings growing from it, and a tree growing from that. It's such a brilliant metaphor, really beautiful imagery. At the moment when the desperate people's wishes become true, the old grandmother who speaks of the prophecy. I really love how at the end she clings to Master Yupa. Because as she's clinging to Yupa, the old woman cries. She says, the ancient words were true, and she cries. But here's the, when this old grandmother told Yupa about it, when she was teaching it to Nausicaä, she teased her, saying, hee, Yupa believes in this, but the one who really wanted to believe was the old grandmother herself. The old grandmother was the one who told Yupa, it is you, Yupa, who is destined to search for me forever. While saying things like that, he actually desperately wanted to believe, you know? So he clung to Yupa and said, the ancient legends were true after all, and he broke down in tears. This part here, the samurai spirit, or rather, the human drama of Nausicaä, I really love it. It's just a brief scene, but you can understand so much from it. Well, since I've explained this much, I'd like to do a complete breakdown, the free version summary, so to speak. This is the summary for episode. About this flying staff in the eye, let me bring us back to this for a moment. What this eye represents is new life being born in a new world, right? And what that is, it's the child of Aspel in Nausicaä's womb. It's only a metaphor for Aspel's child, that's how I see it. Of course, Hayao Miyazaki wouldn't depict such a scene because it's crude, and he doesn't even hint at it. In the first place, if Nausicaä, the heir to the throne, doesn't have a child, the Valley of the Wind will collapse. And if that child is an Aspel's, there's no way the people of Pejite can be accepted. Because the people who originally tried to destroy the Valley of the Wind and caused so much damage, the people of the valley are kind-hearted, so, the people of Pejite are in trouble, so we accepted them. That story doesn't work. Miyazaki, being exceptionally sensitive to such political movements, handles it carefully. So I don't think they were united at the bottom of the sea of corruption, but rather, I think it happened after Talmikia left. There's also the possibility that Kushana planted. She basically told them, what are you going to do from here on? The best solution would be for Nausicaä and Aspel to marry and have children. That way, the two peoples would become one. I think Kushana or Korotoa might have suggested something along those lines. Nausicaä became pregnant and heavy with child, which is why she ended up in the position of seeing Aspel and Yupa off. When she said, have a safe trip, it was because she already had a child in her belly, and when you think about it, why the people of the Valley of the Wind so readily accepted the Pejite refugees? Makes sense because there's one consistent, rational explanation throughout. So that's why, in Nausicaä's ending, the protagonist role switched from Nausicaä to Aspel. Why Nausicaä stepped back to see them off. And why it became Aspel's story from that point on. It connects to a story about their two children from here. Since Nausicaä is pregnant, she can no longer leave the Valley of the Wind. Instead, Aspel carries the burden of all the sins they've committed so far. He can't stay in the Valley of the Wind as a king, so he became a wandering explorer, a traveler and disciple of Yupa. I think there's this larger narrative at play. As for Aspel, I'd like to discuss him in more detail in the members-only section. For a deeper complete analysis, part 4 continues in the member. Thank you for watching. That's all for today's free content. This is what I believe about it. So we've reached part 4 of Nausicaä today. The complete Nausicaä analysis part 4 is. Let's start by thinking about the meaning of the final scene. In the final scene, from the top, Nausicaä is repairing a windmill. And Mito is there. Looking down at the bottom of the screen, the people of Pejite are there. The people of Pejite are wearing head wraps and headbands. So their clothing has distinct. There are people from Pejite. In other words, people from Pejite have come, and they're learning how to build windmills. The city of Pejite has already been destroyed, with dead god warriors everywhere. Which means everything beyond that point will be swallowed by the sea of corruption. So what do? Essentially, they've immigrated to the Valley of the Wind. This scene shows how they make the new windmill. The reason they need a new windmill is, just like they learned at the bottom of the Sea of Corruption, if they pump water from depths over 500 meters, clean water comes out. That's been proven. So Nausicaä teaches them this. From now on, they don't need to build water storage trenches anymore. They just need to pump water from deep underground. In response, the Pejite people say, well, if it's an engineering matter, we can help with that. They help build an efficient windmill, and both peoples work together. To pump clean water infinitely from underground, and the valley will prosper from here on. That's a pretty good ending, right? Next is this, children planting trees. Prajaite children are mixed in with the other children. Some wear head coverings, there's the Prajaite head wrap and the Valley of the Wind head wrap. And there's also the Hachimaki, and in the glider scene too, there's a Prajaite child in the foreground. The next generation. The surviving Prajaite people, centered around the children, have become residents of the Valley of the Wind. That's the setup. There was an opinion that pumping water from 500 meters underground would be difficult. Well, the Prajaite people dug out a giant warrior from even deeper than that, so I think Prajaite's technology would be enough to handle that. So these Prajaite people became residents of the Valley of the Wind, but strangely enough, Aspel doesn't move to the Valley of the Wind. This is how Aspel's story ends. This scene here is the parting between Aspel and Nausicaä. Going in order from the top, first, Nausicaä is flying ahead. Then Aspel and Yupa overtake her. They overtake her, say goodbye, and then we get a close-up of Nausicaä's face as she says goodbye. This is Nausicaä's final appearance. From here on, we see Aspel and Yupa, but Nausicaä, who should be the main character, has this as her last scene. For those who've been listening to my lectures, you'll understand this. The key point is that she's moving to the left. In other words, up until now, Nausicaä has been driving the story forward through her movement across the screen. Nausicaä has been driving the story until now. But from here on, Aspel takes over that role. That's why Aspel overtakes Nausicaä. And then, as her final appearance, she waves her hand. It's like the lead role is being passed on, the heroine's curtain call. She makes eye contact with the audience, so to speak, showing her face clearly and waving. So the heroine is saying goodbye here. From here on, we see Aspel and the others entering the Sea of Decay. But why didn't Nausicaä go? Why is Aspel going? It's about why Aspel didn't immigrate and settle here instead. Next scene. Yupa and Aspel entering the Sea of Decay. See how they move from right to left on screen. They're moving from upstage to downstage, Aspel and Yupa gazing at the god warrior. They're looking to the left side of the screen here too. Their position looking toward the downstage side to it. It really follows textbook directing fundamentals in every way. But they have a purpose for going to the bottom of the Sea of Decay. They're searching. What are they searching for? It's the world at the bottom of the Sea of Decay. Nausicaä and Aspel found it. But the world at the bottom of the Sea of Decay. This is from when Nausicaä fell. At the bottom of the Sea of Decay, the air and water are both clean. You don't need a mask, but there's no life at all. There's clean sand. Clean water too. But all the trees are dead. Nausicaä says that only water flows through the dead trees. It's a world of death. There's absolutely no life there. It was wrapped in absolute silence. So the toxic jungle creates completely pure nature, so to speak, clean water and air, but there's no life dwelling in it. But at the end, life is actually being born in the toxic jungle. And that's because Aspel and Nausicaä fell there. The Chico fruit that Nausicaä brought is sprouting. If you look at the storyboards, it clearly says Chico. The storyboards specifically say it's a sprout germinating from the. When Nausicaä falls, she's attacked by the giant wasp. And when its tail flicks the Mev away, there's a scene where Nausicaä's hat gets blown off. It's that hat. If you look closely at this hat, the ear flaps on both sides are open, and they look like wings. That's the key point. They open on both sides to look like wings. And in the middle, a sprouted Chico seedling is growing. In other words, if Nausicaä hadn't gone there, there would only be a sterile world, and nature wouldn't have been reborn. Yupa and Aspel will eventually find that place. And Talmekia, Pejite, and the Valley of the Wind, the three nations will one day join hands and migrate there. It ends up being a conclusion filled with hope like that. The reason it has this feathered form is that the opening's mere legend. Has finally become reality in this moment. That one, clad in azure garments, shall descend upon the golden field. In this case, shall doesn't mean should do something. But rather the future perfect form, it's about destiny. Shall indicates destiny, that they will descend upon the golden field. Continuing, they shall restore the bond with the lost earth, and finally guide all people to a land of blue purity. That's the prophecy being fulfilled. If Nausicaä hadn't carried the toxic jungle's seeds, it would have just been clean air. And remained a world of death forever. Nausicaä and Aspel were actually the very cause that revived the depths of the toxic jungle into a land of blue purity. So the desperate people's wishes become reality, trees grow there. And there's a girl with wings, that's what this is. There's a hat with feathers, and trees growing from it. It's such a brilliant metaphor, you know? It's become a picture. It's done so skillfully, really at the level of, in the moment when the desperate people's wishes become truth, this wish. The great-grandmother who speaks of this prophecy, I think. I really love that scene at the end where she clings to Yupa. The reason is, while the old woman clings to Yupa, she cries. She cries saying the ancient legend was true, but here's the thing. When this old woman first told Yupa about it, when she taught it to him, she asked him not to make fun of her. So Yupa believes in this legend. Is how she teases him, but the one who really wanted to believe was the old woman. It was the old woman herself who told Yupa, "You're destined to keep searching for me forever." But she was actually desperately wanting to believe it. That's why she clings to Yupa and breaks down crying, saying the ancient legend was true. I really love this human drama in Nausicaä, or rather, this side of Nausicaä. It's just a brief scene, but you can understand so much from it. Well, now that I've explained all this, I'd like to do a complete breakdown, a free version summary, so to speak. This is the summary for episode. About this flying rod in the eye, should we go back to that? This eye represents new life being born in the new world, right? And what that actually is. I think it's nothing but a metaphor for the child of Aspel that Nausicaä is carrying. Of course, Miyazaki wouldn't draw such a scene because he finds it vulgar, and he doesn't even hint at it. Fundamentally, if Nausicaä, the heir to the throne, doesn't have children, the Valley of the Wind will collapse. If that child is in Aspel's, there's no way the people of Pejite could be accepted. Because the people who originally tried to destroy the Valley of the Wind and caused so much damage, the Valley of the Wind people are kind-hearted. It wouldn't make sense to say they accepted the Pejite people just because they were in trouble. Miyazaki, who is exceptionally sensitive to such political movements, handles this carefully. So I don't think they were bound together at the bottom of the sea of corruption. But rather it probably happened after Talmekia left. There's also a possibility that Kushana had. So what are you guys gonna do from here on? Thank you for watching.